This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Doug, welcome back.
Thank you.
We had just started talking about the mailers and so forth. So when a call comes in, how is that handled? Are you answering the phone, or has that been delegated somehow?
Yeah, well, today it's very different than
of course.
When maybe 6 years ago.
Okay.
6 years ago, still just Andrea and I doing everything. So when that call came in, it kind of rang to my cell phone. And I would answer as best I could, and I'm using just scratch pads and different things to kind of keep track of everything. And after a while, I realized this is not working. This is overwhelming. I'm losing people's folders because it gets in a stack at the bottom and then I never get to it. And so if we wanted to make this work as a business, we had to kind of think of it more as a business in terms of mailing and marketing to direct to owner. So now we have a team that kind of helps us out with all of that. So when a call comes in,
right? Yeah,
it's answered by one of our lead manager, and then she'll kind of vet the lead, and she'll ask some questions to see if it's going to be a good lead or not, or if it's better for a listing referral, things like that.
Now, when we say lead manager, is this somebody that works for your company or somebody that is just...
It's somebody that works for our company.
Okay,
yeah,
so that's very different than somebody like a call center.
It's not a call center, yeah.
It's not my Pat Live.
Have you tried that?
I have tried. I don't want to mention... Well, you said it. I've tried Pat Live before, and there's other call centers. And I tried it for about 2 weeks, and it just wasn't for us. I didn't like it.
Okay.
And I called in to kind of test it, and we just weren't getting information that we needed. The person's just kind of going down the checklist, and if there's no answer, they're not reaching and trying another way to get the information we need.
Right.
It just seemed that way. So it was limited information. It was, just not for our business. We wanted to just take everything live that we could.
But you found you could delegate that away from yourself.
Yes.
Which actually
helped a lot.
It helped a lot. Interesting.
In terms of my sanity and time.
Okay. So you were able to... What percentage of the leads then do you think you personally dealt with? Was it much less than 100%?
You mean now?
Well, no, the call comes in. Does it... does a certain percentage of those just go away because there's no way you're going to make that deal, either because the people are just not going to cooperate or the equity's not there or whatever? Yeah,
there's a big percentage. So initially when calls would come in and I'm handling everything and trying to juggle it, I would just focus on the ones I felt were good. And then everybody else kind of got pushed to the side, delayed, or slipped through the cracks or forgotten. And it wasn't that they weren't good. They just didn't seem like the best lead to me at the time. So there was probably some deals in there that just were lost because I was trying to handle too much. But even today, we only buy one out of every 40 calls that comes in. We'll buy the house.
One out of every 40 calls. What does it take in the number of mailers to get the call?
More than it used to. I mean, mailing is definitely very competitive, especially right now. The market's better. People are teaching it more and more and more. It's just a lot of competition in terms of mail. It's real noisy in the mailbox. So I would say, we have to, our call, honestly, our percentage is about 0.5%
of a response.
And then out of that,
1/40th is a result in a buy.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very expensive in mail just to get that phone to ring. And then you got to be good at converting.
Is there any alternative method that you find deals?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There's internet. We're doing a lot of Google ads, things like that, which is also its own beast, whole different.
Totally different. Way. Very expensive as well.
Very expensive as well. And you can burn through a lot of money real fast if you don't know what you're doing with that. And it's also highly competitive.
Well, you said something very important is it's about the conversion. Can you convert it?
Right.
A marketer can drive all the traffic, but if you don't have somebody on the other call.
Yeah. And I try to hammer home to and they know it, our team, every single time that phone rings, it's costing us money in marketing. That's where we're at in our business right now to get leads is these marketing channels. So, treat it like that. It's gold. When that phone's ringing, it may be the wrong number, but we got to handle it with care and try to answer it at all costs and return
Ask
the
for
call
a really good Google rating.
Yeah. So it's conversion is, getting the phone to ring is one half, and then actually knowing what to do with that phone call is the other half.
The other 39, do you have any path that can be profitable?
Yes, we do. We refer a lot of people to listing agents.
Okay.
And we try to just decipher through their situation, through the house itself, their the urgency and need to sell. A lot of them are better suited to, we tell them just straight up, I think you're going to get more. If you don't mind waiting a little bit and having people come through your house, you're probably going to net more money if you just list it, because your house doesn't need repair. It's good neighborhood, whatever the situation is. Mm-hmm. So we refer way more out than we actually end up buying.
Does that create a cash flow of some kind that kind of pays for some of the advertising?
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, exactly. It helps offset. It's not a huge money maker, but it helps offset some of the marketing costs and things like that. Okay. Plus, we've got a great relationship with the agents that we refer to, so they think of us, whenever they come across a property, which we appreciate.
Any reason you haven't decided to bring somebody in that you do that in-house?
Thought about it, but again, it's another business.
Right.
At the moment, we're not really interested in running a brokerage.
Yeah,
so to speak.
That's a challenge of a business. You always have. I like those 3 circles in that one book. What are you best in the world at? And it's so tempting to go off that.
It is.
Go get another layer, and then you find out, I'm leaving my business that I'm best at.
And we always look for shiny objects. We can't help it. There's always shiny objects around, and so you have to pick and choose.
Everybody has a preference. Do you like to meet people that are selling
in person, or just? Yeah, I do personally. Okay. I prefer to meet in person. We probably do about 50-50. A lot of the times we never get to meet the person, either out of the area or it's just on the phone or text. A lot of text negotiating going on these days. Yeah, more and more people, myself included, prefer texting over calling sometimes, and wow. So that's been a higher, I guess, more important lately.
Did you customize emoji?
Dollar signs.
That's an interesting idea.
Who's got... Dad's getting some mad emoji skills. You have to watch out with this one. Every once in a while, he surprises me.
That comes from my wife, Sandy. She's all into that stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, that's pretty funny. It's interesting because you have people very successful. Mike Cantu wants to meet no one ever.
Yeah.
And Tony Alvarez would want to meet 100% of the world if he can. Right. And you fall somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
I always like to meet the people. I always felt that was my best strength, was not the phone, but meeting people and getting them to like and trust you and so forth, But everybody has their niche. Have you ever thought of building from scratch?
We've thrown it around a little bit. It's a different animal. We're looking into that a little bit more now, but every time we go down that road in California, my head just kind of sinks a little lower, and I kind of slide down in my chair as I hear all the fees and school fees and that and the time frame, and can be a great business, I'm sure, and you'd build, so you would know, but.
One of the reasons, though, I did, because it was, I know in those niches, there are 2 things that happen simultaneously. You can sell anything you have, and it's harder than heck to find the next one. Mm-hmm. And so to think about that prior to that happening is like when Rosamond, when I bought those lots, that was 3 or 4 years before we built them, and that was intentional because I wasn't going to try and find 100 houses that year, but I could present 100 houses.
You could create them.
That's right. And so that's kind of how I think when I get in quadrant 4. I think, okay, someday it's going to be very expensive to get a lead that pans out, but I can buy a piece of dirt and wait, and that's partly why I do that, because we now can present. We never have a house a week after we're done, because that's quadrant 4. Well,
we certainly like the idea of it. And I think we're kind of Andrea and in our head, like we're planning for the next time around, the next cycle. We'll be ready to do that. More of that.
more of that life. Yes.
That's actually a good question. Are you guys? And this is not I'm not really passionate about real estate. I was passionate about the end result. I'm passionate about stats and figuring out what's next. That's for me. So if you guys were like financially all set, would you still do it?
That's a good question. I mean, what attracted us to real estate initially was the opportunity financially through it and for our long-term retirement. That was what got us into real estate. But I think as we've been in real estate, fixing and flipping houses primarily, we do enjoy it. I like the transformation. I enjoy the process. I enjoy improving this product and seeing, people excited about it and enjoying what it has become. So I think we would, yeah. Okay. Maybe not work as hard, trying to get as many as possible, but being more selective and just doing it for the joy of what you get to do in that process. I think we would, yeah. Okay.
How has the access to information changed the business?
Well, we got in 2008, so access was there. I mean, I've always relied on the internet. From what I understand, back before that, it was very, very difficult to get the public records, the data that you needed.
Well, foreclosure records, like Foreclosure Radar, I mean, that changed the game and made participants go from 5, we'd have 5 bidders in Riverside to 100.
Yeah. And so in the same way, in our world of direct to seller, more and more information has been coming out in the last 4, 5, 6 years from different teachers, educators, podcasts, things on the skills necessary and the resources needed to get the information for lists and mailing. So in that sense, there's an access of information. So our competitors are out there in droves. I mean, there's a lot of people doing similar things.
The seller too. Oh, how hard is it for them to pop up on a computer and say, okay, my house is worth whatever?
Oh, everyone knows their Zillow number. Yeah, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how it works.
One of the reasons I want to have Zillow on the technology panel this year, we're still working with them, is just they're going to know before anybody else that somebody's going to list. And now that they're buying houses, they are a direct competitor to real estate investors. Right. So from what I understand, I've talked to several of the companies, their model is not the heavy fixers. It's going to be clean. They want the CarMax model. They're not going to take a junker and then try to resell it. But
I've heard similar things from what I understand. Yeah. But I'm watching them and Redfin and all the other ones and kind of see how that plays out. They're in the home buying business now.
It'll definitely take a piece of the action, part of the pie.
Sure.
And the biggest piece for me is the marketing piece. They're going to know because of they, especially Zillow, controls such a large part of the search traffic. So they're going to know addresses and who's searching and how likely they are to want to sell.
I think it comes down to something you mentioned earlier. There's still going to be a segment of the population who's selling a home who wants to trust the person across the table from them and sell to that person. And so if you have the skill of being able to talk to people and relate and build rapport and trust, there's still going to be business for you, I think. You just have to be able to find that person.
I agree. I think that's why it's interesting you've gone the branding route. I think it's really going to help you in the future instead of being sort of this purposeful, vague.
Right. We buy houses company. Right. Quote unquote, which is fine. But we wanted to have a little bit more of a branding, of a name, a repetitive, something that's out there that can be recognizable aside from all the other competition.
Let's say in the next few months you buy 10 houses. What percentage of those are going to get fixed and flipped, wholesaled, or rented?
Probably 8 of those will get wholesaled.
Okay.
And likely 2 of those will get fixed and flipped. Maybe if one of them is really good, we'll keep it as a rental.
Okay.
But that's getting fewer these days due to prices out here.
Okay. Yeah. So you did the right business model in 2012, and
that would have been different in 2011.
Right.
Yeah, very different.
Been renting a lot.
Probably at least 50% of those would have been kept as a rental, and the other would have been fixed and flipped. We started wholesaling at bigger numbers in the last 3 or 4 years.
How do you decide who you're going to wholesale to? Because I mean, they're repetitive people, I would imagine.
Mostly repetitive people. These days, I usually it's a variety of different ways, but I would try to think, who do I think would want this property, or who would be the right buyer for this property?
Okay.
So I'd try to call them first, or who's been kind of blowing up my phone lately saying, Doug, you haven't sent me anything lately. Yeah. You know, honestly.
By the way, isn't it interesting that works?
It does work.
Right. It doesn't even have to be the best guy. He's just like the biggest pain in the butt. I've got to give him something.
And, you know, it's funny. I need to do more of that because I know it works because it happens with me, you know. But I unfortunately, I don't do that enough because we buy from wholesalers as well.
Oh, okay.
And I need to do more of that. Just
interesting.
You know, the squeaky wheel. Be the squeaky wheel sometimes.
I used to have really good relationships with the REO agents because went back, you know, sometimes decades of, okay, we're doing this again. Are you still in business, you know? And I hadn't heard from somebody. I'd call up. He said, oh, yeah, we just had one. You just had one. And it's like, yeah, but this guy called. He called me all the time. And I finally just gave him one. It's like,
same is true. And in the relationships world with agents. I think it's all critical. Stay in their ear.
Managing properties. So you kind of gradually were forced into that world.
Yeah.
Did you do it yourself for a while?
We did.
How did you enjoy that?
I didn't really enjoy that part of it. We haven't really enjoyed the property. It was fine when there was just a handful, and it just didn't take up that much time. But as our portfolio has grown, you know, thankfully, we brought in somebody to help us with that, and we got to a point where we just knew that we really aren't good at this. We're not that good at it. We need to kind of outsource this to professional. So about a year ago, we hired a professional management company, and you know, life is much better.
Isn't it funny? There's people you talk to and they'll shake their head and be like, "That's 10%. You could be pocketing." And I'm the same way. I've divested of my property management.
You're maybe the same way. I'm so susceptible to stories. Like,
yes.
You know, we can
Your mom died again?
Yeah. I can only pay $500 this month, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. Here, let me help you with that.
Yeah, can I write you a check?
And it's, you know, and that's good. I mean, you have a good heart, but sometimes we have to be able to separate. For me, I had to separate. This is a business here. Yes, there are real people involved with real situations. So I need an outside third party who's neutral to be able to handle this versus us. And, you know, maybe it costs us a little more. I honestly, when I run the numbers, actually, I think we make more.
I agree.
They're better. They're better at it. They're turning it over faster.
They raise rents.
They're raising rents regularly, which I, you know, rarely did.
Yeah.
We rarely did. So I think, you know, it's actually playing out financially better for us.
And you have time that's not taken. And that's not just time you spend. There's something about residual brain space being taken with situations.
Emotional equity, I call that.
I don't like having that stuff in my world.
Yeah, exactly. We needed to separate from that as well.
This is a true statement. The California rentals that I sold and 1031 exchange, I could have never found one of them driving around ever.
I did not know which properties were here.
I hadn't been there for 6 or 7 years, and I had no desire to be. You know, it would work. You know, it's interesting. One thing we did that was kind of a test. We fixed them as if we were going to sell them. So they were perfect when the people moved in, and people were there. I never raised rents, which was part of what someone did for me, and that's why I did that. You know, when I was starting, there was a guy in Orange County, never raised rents. He allowed me to save money to buy a house.
Yeah, and you probably stayed there a while, and
I was there for 2 or 3 years, and I put carpet in. I mean, I did, but when we sold those homes, the repair bill was so small.
Yeah,
because people took care of them. It was like the best place they'd ever lived in. So that was interesting, and that's why I got attracted to building the new homes, because we just don't have a lot of competition.
Yeah.
You know, so my next question actually was, you've had a lot of different properties now that you've rented. So what's like, if you had your choice, what's the perfect rental property?
You know, it's funny. I heard Mike Cantu answer this question 50 times through his different interviews and whatnot and talking to him. And really, I end up agreeing. I mean, if you have a good neighborhood, so a house in a good neighborhood where it's desirable to live in, typically a good school district, that is just a smaller house, not a huge McMansion, probably around 1,300 to 1,800 square feet, single story, at least 3 bedrooms. You're going to have a family that's going to dig their heels in there and send their kids all through the schools and stay there for, 10, 15 years most likely, if you have that kind of house. I would prefer a newer house as well.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be, at least for a while, you're going to not deal with replacing the roof and replacing the hot water heater and those kind of things. Which, for us, when we bought here initially in 2011 and 12, I mean, that wasn't the inventory we were able to,
right.
or we focused on it anyway.
See, and that's what's neat about California. We get this explosion of equity. The stuff that I bought, went up by 400% when I was buying them in 2009. And that's not available all over the country,
right.
that kind of price range increase. But then you can exchange someplace, and that's where you can land on, this is the inventory I now get to, I get to pick. And that's just pretty cool.
Yeah, so if I'm picking today, I am looking for more of a newer inventory, still in that good area. And the numbers on paper may not look as good as they did in 2009, but I know in reality, with a good tenant in a good area, it's probably going to play out better for me in the long term.
How far is reselling properties right now in California? Is it still great?
Still good. You'd think it would be a little better.
Okay.
I would think, just with low inventory, interest rates super low. I mean, summertime. Properties still move relatively really fast for us. I mean, we talked about already, we do a little extra with the rehabs to make sure that happens. But I think if we didn't do that little extra with the rehabs, they sit a little longer. You're not necessarily getting multiple offers on the first weekend anymore.
I've been getting that feedback a lot.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, from people in Orange County and San Diego at the moment.
And
like people seriously stressed out.
I think a little bit higher price range is going to experience that a little more. It still feels like the lower end price, if it's really fixed well, it's going to have more buyers for that. But once you get kind of above that median price, it better be special, or it's going to sit a little longer.
Okay. You have any concerns about where we are a year from now in the market?
Well, that's the question I have for you. It depends on your answer.
It depends on my answer. Yeah, it's interesting because we're already at a higher price than I thought we'd get to. I thought we'd peak out at 550 and then start, and we're already at 6. So that's okay, it's stronger than I thought it would be. So
yeah, and you're talking about state median price.
Yeah.
And I've, as I showed you our portfolio a while ago, I mean, there's certain areas, at least from what I can tell, in the Inland Empire where it's still way behind.
Yeah.
And
35% back.
It's San Francisco's messing up the.
Yeah, you do have some skew to those high dollar areas that certainly are.
Right.
I mean, San Francisco went from 950 to $1.6 million at the peak. 950.
Yeah.
Now it's $1.550 million.
Yeah. I
mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And San Jose.
San Jose's the same, yeah.
Just big things. I think I figured out 20% of everything that's sold is over $1 million in California. That's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's driven by a different reason up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sometimes foreign money, but certainly big paychecks, and jobs, and stock options and stuff like that. That's a whole different world.
Yeah, that's not necessarily Hemet, So
no,
I'm more interested in Hemet and Hesperia and kind of what's going to happen there in the next couple of years.
We got a minute left. I wanted to ask you this: you've succeeded in a business few people do. So why?
I don't know. We've been blessed. We've been very grateful for the successes that we've had. But honestly, when we just kind of made a decision early on that we were going to do this, and so we didn't really think about failure. We knew there's going to be challenges, and there always is. But we just were determined and just knew that we're going to make this work. What's it going to take? Whatever it's going to take, but we'll do it. And it didn't happen overnight, like we talked. I mean, it was kind of a years of kind of learning. I was kind of
glad to hear that, because that's that just shows there's something interesting about that word decide. In Apollo 13, the movie, there's this Tom Hanks is laying there outside on the like a lounge and says to his wife, "It's not a miracle that we ended up on the moon. We just decided to go." And that word decide is like, okay, it's there's different levels to it, but you actually decided and made it happen. So that's very cool. Yeah.
So I don't know. It wasn't like something we're going to try and we put a limit on it that if it didn't work, we were out.
Right.
So.
You just did it until. Yeah. Well, Doug, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. What's your website for the home buying stuff?
If you want.
SoCalHomebuyers.com is our. Yeah.
Okay.
And the design site?
VantageDesignStudio.com is Andrea's site for her interior design business.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure, that's fun.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.